Hey, is this thing on? Are we recording? Can I get a tech person? Oh, for the love of ed tech. Joining us today is Sheryl Winter, who is a secondary educational technologist from Springboro City Schools. So, hello, Sheryl.
Hi, Kara. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast today. I am a secondary educational technologist from Springboro Community City Schools. I've currently been in this position now. This is my 9th year, so quite a while actually being outside of the classroom. It's a little bit scary when I think about it. That I've been out that long. Yeah, exactly.
What took you out of the classroom?
Well,
obviously this position, but
I started out here in Springboro as an English teacher. I made 1 year as an English teacher and then switched to social studies for the next 12 years. So, so it was a while. I was a building tech coach for a while when we had those here in Springboro. I kind of came by my love for tech pretty naturally. I was actually late to education. I didn't start teaching in general till I was almost 30. And before that, I slowly went through school and worked at Best Buy. So my love for tech kind of grew with the Best Buy stores in the area, because I actually helped set up the Best Buy stores in the area, which is kind of a weird fun fact. But when I was looking for what I had to do for my master's, technology was just an easy fit, because I've been dealing with it for so many years. And I'm one of those teachers that had to get a master's in the state of Ohio within 5 years during that period where that happened. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll do it in technology. I mean, I've been working in technology most of my life. So I went to Wright State, got my master's in educational technology, and really wasn't planning on doing much with it. And I was sitting in the classroom during the summer. My room was set up. It was, like late July. And I get a phone call from one of my former principals, and she's like, there's a position opening up. I would really love it if you would apply for it. I'm like, no, I don't want to leave the classroom. I like teaching my social studies.
Yeah.
And she said, well, there's one little thing that you have, is that you can kind of flex your hours throughout the day. And at the same time this happened, my babysitter moved to South Carolina. So the flex the hours went ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. I ended up over here in the central office. I, applied for the position. I successfully was able to get it. And I've been here now for, this is, like I said, 8 full years, going on my 9th year.
Wow. Okay. So back to Best Buy. Okay. I'm really curious, working at Best Buy, how did you one day just decide, I think I want to be a teacher?
Well, I was actually, I was on the 9-year plan at Wright State.
Okay.
So I was in that pathway, but I had to pay my own way through college. I was engaged and then married. And so it was a very long, drawn out process.
Okay.
And eventually it just had to get to the point where Best Buy, I was a floor supervisor. So I was in charge, if you remember the old days of Best Buy, where that whole area where the multimedia was in the center with the music and the DVD plays.
Yep. Absolutely.
And all that stuff. So because I was in management, I had stock options, and it was really hard to say no to those. So it took me a while to kind of just say, okay, that's it. Now I have to student teach and make no money. Yeah. So it was kind of a difficult thing. But fun fact, I just saw on the news today, Best Buy is going to actually stop selling all DVDs and Blu-rays officially. They announced it this morning. Yeah. So end of an era.
That is the end of an era. Yeah. And it is kind of sad, like with the DVDs and Blu-rays in a sense, because I do wonder if it'll circle back. Like vinyls have circled back.
Yeah, vinyl's back. It could. I have quite a few of them sitting on shelves, so I'm not going to get rid of them. They last a little bit longer, obviously, than the VHSs. I had some VHSs I had to get rid of because of, damage from the air. But, they'll be around longer as long as you have something to play them on.
Yeah. And that'll be a hot commodity at the Goodwill.
There you go.
DVD players. All right. So, back on track. I am curious. Are you in charge of your tech PD for your district?
So, I am the way we work it out in the district is there's actually two of us, an elementary educational technologist and a secondary educational technologist. So I work with Amy Romez here in Springboro to develop tech PD. My primary focus is on the 6 through 12 PD. However, she helps in my world, I help in her world, and we kind of like work together to make sure teachers get professional development. For the last 7 years, I was part of the team that planned the district-wide PD. And this year, we kind of switched it up a little bit and changed from what would have been like kind of one of your, I'm going out to like a statewide PD and I'm going to pick choice sessions from a choice board. Our PD looked a little bit more like that until this year. This year, the district decided to kind of swing it in a different direction and develop PD pathways where teachers would pick different pathways to follow for their professional development. Like we have a pathway that's teacher self-care. We have a reboot, refresh, revive pathway for teachers that want to just look a little bit more at pedagogy. And then we have a couple other, and the educational technology pathway, which I head up for secondary and Amy heads up for elementary.
Oh, nice. When you choose a pathway, are there choices within the pathway? Or is it kind of,
I had to build mine that way. Yeah. For most of them, it's a singular line. But what I ran into was that most of the groups are sitting around 20 to 22 people and I'm at 50. So there's no way with 50 people with different levels of technology ability, I could design something that was one size fits all. So I've leaned on a couple of things here in the district that we have available, because obviously if it's a 3-hour day like we had on last Monday, I'm locked into only 3 hours. I'm also helping lead up the reboot, refresh, revive one. So because of that, I technically only had 2 hours where I was actually performing PDs and 1 hour where I needed to be in the other pathway. So it makes it a little bit difficult in designing. So what I did was I designed a PD pathway that had 4 choices during each hour. And some of them were on demand things like quizzes on demand university or CAMI, if you wanted to become a CAMI certified trainer where you could go and just do your own things. One of them is we're working on getting 17 teachers level 1 certified in Google.
Oh, nice.
So so that one's kind of like they've designed their own pathway. I gave them a check sheet of the skills that they needed to know to pass the test. And then they could go through and start with the check sheet and check the ones they already had off, and then start to look for the ones that they didn't through the actual Google training site. And then we use smart boards in secondary. So I brought in an outside trainer for teachers that needed smart training and the Lumio product training. And I did myself beyond ChatGPT presentation and a Canva presentation, because I felt like that kind of could span the different levels. So with the beyond the ChatGPT, I showed them Bard because a lot of our teachers haven't looked at Bard yet. And I said, this is a good, like, if you've tried ChatGPT, now you want to try something else, try Bard. And then we went into other things that you could do that's kind of, you know, how all the AI is starting to move, where they're trying to take the mystery out of prompting for teachers.
Yeah.
So, you know, things like School, where, you know, the prompts are kind of already pre-written and they just click on buttons and put their specifics in. So those kind of things I shared with them, and then they just had a little time to go in and look at them while I walked around. And then we also have looked in AI and Canva when we did that as well. So,
oh, nice. Yeah. What do you think the teachers liked the most about the pathway option this year?
Well, we haven't done any kind of really field feedback because it's just been a little over a week since we've done it. Usually we develop a feedback model, and I'm actually probably going because it's so now segmented. Instead of being designed by a team of people, it's being designed by a couple people in each pathway. I'm not sure if a full level survey will help me much in my design. We have at least 3 more hours on this pathway, possibly more. There's some time up in the air in the next couple PDs. And so I have Google actually coming in and doing some trainings on 2 of ours. Yeah, we part of upgrading to Google Plus Workspace is that you get a couple hours of,
I didn't know that.
Google training. Yeah. So they're doing a classroom tips and tricks thing where they'll also talk about class sets and a Gmail productivity session. And then the other one that I'm going to do, because again, I can't be everywhere all at once. We're going to have these on demand ones. And then I'm going to do one called AI Now What, which is more of an look not at the tools themselves, but at the ethics behind the tools and how students should be using them, how teachers should be using them, and how they should not. So that's kind of the next part of the pathway. It's kind of hard to design, but I have one Google certified trainer on staff. She ran one of my previous lessons I called Condo Your Drive. So so she helped them clean up their drive and make it all pretty for them. That's always a good one for teachers that are not just having the time to do it, but also being introduced the tricks to how to do it quickly. So I'm lucky that I have a couple people in the district that I can lean on to help with these PD days.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I'm curious too, the idea behind the pathway, is it for the entire year, anytime you're having a PD day, that they'll kind of, once they get in a pathway for the year, they will continue in that pathway for the school year?
Yeah, that's absolutely design. The reason why it was designed was that instead of, everybody cherry picking different things that they wanted to learn, they wanted to go a little bit more in depth within certain areas. So since this is the first time we've done it, I know that there was some positive feedback about guest speakers. I've had a few teachers that have been like, the stuff you showed in ChatGPT was great. This is going to save me all kinds of time. But like the full extent of how this worked, probably we won't see that until we finish the pathway and determine, okay, was there enough hours in this pathway to make it impactful? Did you feel like we were just scratching the surface? So there's going to be some stuff that we'll be looking at as we move into the end of the school year to see if this works as is or if it needs to be changed up a little bit.
If you like this podcast, check out our latest podcast, Minds Over Media, a collaboration between SOIDA and the University of Cincinnati, delving into diverse aspects of media literacy. Uncover the power of media literacy through insightful conversation and gain valuable insights from esteemed scholars and dedicated educators navigating this complex landscape. Check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The lens of PD, I think, has had to shift.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Well, especially in our realm, because if you think about it, with most teachers that are currently teaching in our, they went through that intensive online training that we did during COVID. So my level of teachers that are at a basic almost completely disappeared. So that puts me in intermediate and advanced all the way. So yeah, it had to change in how it was designed. One of the concerns though that I've had with this PD pathway is that, like for instance, remember I had mentioned I brought in my smartboard trainer. Yeah. My struggle is how do I get teachers that are not in my pathway trained in tech tools?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's one of the things that I don't think when it was being designed was really kind of thought about because it was an unintended consequence. So for instance, the board training itself is mandatory. The Lumio training I made optional. So what happened was the Lumio training went out to my pathway people, and the board training I had to like beg principals for time during their hours to bring everybody in for the mandatory board training. So that's one of the things that was kind of an unintended consequence. Another unintended consequence is that there's, like I said, a whole group of people that don't have tech. So I tongue in cheek, I actually used AI to create the name. I created a program. I know I'm doing everything with it. I'm actually on a panel.
It's so good.
I know I'm on a panel for AI next week for our AP capstone classes. That's kind of their focus this year and kind of their research. And so the teacher asked me to create just a profile. So of course I created one in ChatGPT, and then I told it to make it funnier, and then I sent her both and told her to pick which one that she wanted to do. And she said, those are great. It's the perfect way to start. I'm like, well, that's where we're at. It's a time-saving tool. I can have it create it, then I edit my stuff in. So anyway, I was like, give me some ideas of tech tool type trainings for trainer Sheryl Winter. And ChatGPT came up with a Winter Wonder Tech. So like I said, instead of Winter Wonderland, it's Winter Wonder Tech. So what I've just had to do is I have to create at least the ability to offer this to teachers. So at least once a month, I'm offering some of the stuff that's in the PD pathway just for general teachers, as well as some additional things like Cami, I don't know if you guys work with Cami a whole lot, but they offer free PD all the time. So I can bring in a Cami trainer anytime I want. There are a couple other vendors that do that as well. So I'm working on getting some of those webinars in. And then my first winter Wonder Tech, we use Securely Classroom. So I did that to train the teachers because we just adopted it this year and I didn't have a time to train all of the teachers how to use it. But the struggle with that is it happens after school. And so I'm trying, like drum up excitement and get teachers to come on their free time. And I feel blessed that my first one, I had 19 teachers show up for an after school. So I was very happy with that. My next one is going to repeat the Beyond ChatGPT for the teachers that couldn't come to the actual one, because I was at a recent PD also on AI, and they said that, studies are showing that teachers can save up to 13 hours a week by using AI to do their administrative tasks. So I was like, yeah, I can't not get that out there to teachers.
No.
So
yeah.
Why
not
it's promote all the things that can help them?
Exactly. So I've had to turn my PD into like a 2-pronged offensive. I'm going after them during the pathway, and then I'm offering everyone who misses pathway time that they can choose to come. Obviously not mandatory, but that they can choose and learn more about it.
Yeah, and I feel like I love the idea of the pathways, but I could see some of those downfalls with it as well. And what do you do too for people that get into a pathway and then they're like, well, I could probably benefit more from some of the stuff I've been hearing people talk about, or,
Well, and the official line is no change. So we'll see. But I've also, that's one of those things that again, when you create something new, you don't know what the ripple effects are going to be till you actually implement it. So these are some of the discussions we'll have to have moving into next year is, okay, what are we going to do? And our first PD this year was kind of a choice one, but one of the unintended consequences that I know that we're seeing is that there's very little time or people able to choose the technology pathway in elementary because they're all hemmed into subject related pathways. So Amy's group was pretty small. So, how can we fix that going into next year where, hey, maybe they have a pathway for this, but we still give 1 hour to, hey, this is a new tool that you have to use. Let's train you how to use it. So
that's rough, especially trying to figure that out for K-12. Because, they are kind of two different worlds in a lot of ways. And how do you, because the elementary still need the tech piece like the high school. So So it's going to be interesting to see how it morphs a little bit as we move on. I feel kind of blessed that mine's designed. I know exactly what it's going to look like for the rest of the year, unless they throw me a curveball, of some other kind of, like they add more PD time or something, which has been known to happen. But I do love being out among the teachers and the kiddos way more than sitting here and doing data. In fact, that's what I was doing right before this is I have to get an AP score sheet uploaded into School Links. And so sitting here pulling geo because all the kids can enter their student identifier in and they're all adding their password letters into their student identifier. So I'm literally pulling out geo in a whole column of files. So I don't like doing that. I would much rather be out. I
out
would
there.
like to be with your teachers and students too. That's where the fun happens.
Yeah, exactly. So
or you hop into something unexpected.
Right. Right. Exactly. Fun stuff. Yeah, fun stuff. So that's why after I get off the phone with you, I got a fun toy. I'm going to go out and take it out to a teacher and have him set up this fun little toy. It's called Time Kettle. And a friend of mine showed this to me when we were at Loom's Tech Tour not too long ago.
Yeah. What is it?
And I had my husband actually buy one because he travels a lot. It is a translating tool. And one of the things that I know a lot of schools are struggling with is translating stuff. So I guess I got to show you.
Yeah.
You guys can see it. Everybody who's listening can't see it. But basically what it is they're earbuds that run through an app. And it's called Time Kettle. And you say, for instance, your right earbud to be English and you give the earbud to the other person you're talking to and set it to be Chinese. And you can create a one-way conversation where you're like teaching and the kid is hearing what you're saying in Chinese in their ear.
Oh, how
Or I
cool.
know, or you can even set it to a two-way conversation and you can talk back and forth with each other where you're speaking English, they're hearing Chinese, they're speaking Chinese and you're hearing English.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there it's really, really cool. We're testing it out. The only issue we've run into, actually, my husband mentioned this. We haven't tried it yet because he used it in India when he went there last week because he bought a set for work. And he said that when you're in a group and everybody's talking at once, even though the earbud's only in the one person's ear, it's picking up a lot of different words. And because it's not voice specific, you can't tell who it's coming from. So I said, even though that is super cool, because like we have a kiddo, the teacher who's been struggling, and some kids that just came to the United States from China, and they need some standard Chinese translation. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot and take it out to them and see how it works.
Yeah, that sounds so cool.
Yep. But I guess apparently you can hook it up to a Bluetooth speaker too. So you can put one in your ear, speak in English, and you can be having like a meeting and it will play Chinese for the parents.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I haven't tried everything out, but I'm excited to play with it.
Yeah. Do you know how many languages it does?
I don't. I'd have to look up in the
okay,
app.
No,
but I know it does Turkish. I know it because we have a high number of Turkish, Chinese, Ukrainian. Obviously, those are kind of our three big new influx of kids that speak English as a second language. So that's what I get to do after this. Is I'm going to take this out to teacher and make his day and have him test them out for us. So.
Yeah, see, that sounds like fun.
Yeah,
you should
exactly.
Back.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I'll tell you.
We can live vicariously through you.
Yeah.
I know.
Kara might need one of those.
In Springboro, we've never had a large number of ELL kids, and that's definitely changing as the demographic shift. And so we're trying to find ways to shift with it. And I know that we're using Pocket Talker right now as one of the things we're checking too, which is basically just like a device that you speak in and then you hit a button and it says it back, where this is more conversational. So that's kind of what we're curious about, to see if this will ease some of the discomfort that comes with I'm in a classroom and I have to go up and talk into a thing and then talk back to each other, where this could be more of, at the very minimum, they could hear it in their language.
I was going to say a little more discreet maybe too. So they don't feel as like pinpointed.
Exactly. So I'm excited to give it a shot. Yeah.
I feel like, we've had lots of conversations about AI because I feel like it's one of those big technology's been waiting for something.
Yeah, it's totally like that big leap that we take. Yeah. You go along and you plug along and then there's this big leap in technology.
Yep.
This was our big leap. So it's going to be interesting. I know it was kind of funny because my daughter is really big into K-pop, and we were watching some K-pop videos on YouTube last night. One that popped up was a completely AI version of her favorite band singing some artist song that was created in AI. And she's like, Mom, that's crazy. It sounds exactly like them. And I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. And then she was like looking up some stuff and she goes, Mom, there's an entirely AI K-pop band. Like the entire, like,
completely
as AI.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, I mean, that's the reality of it. And that's one of the things that I'm kind of bummed about, because I was working with the teacher that's doing that panel on Monday, and she was asking, suggestions about people to bring in on the panel that could talk about their thoughts on it. And I was like, no, you really need to bring somebody who's in the creative arts, somebody who's a singer, somebody who's an artist, somebody who's an actor.
Absolutely.
There is a lot of like the authors that are suing right now, ChatGPT, for creating works that are similar to theirs. And so it's kind of a big deal. And that's why I'm hoping that whole ethical use thing, that's one of the things that the ethical use one, I'm hoping to turn that into one for parents as well, because I have to do a project for my superintendent's license. And I figured parent meetings on technology might fit right into my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that AI one would be a good one to branch out to families and parents, because ethical use of it's going to become super important.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of those two sides of everything. There's a good side and there's a bad side, and we need to consider the bad side as well.
Yeah.
Because
and we know that kids are using it like for all things school wise. So the question is what is acceptable use, and what is the classroom going to look like when we are promoting use that is ethical? I know our district, the chat generative AI, we have turned off for kids. but Grammarly's AI, predictive text in Gmail is AI.
Yeah.
So these kids are still using it, even though I don't think they realize they're using it.
I know it's going to be an interesting conversation to continue to have, because when we get to a certain point, how are we going to be able to tell?
Right. We won't.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
and even these companies that are saying,
like we have a detector or whatever, those kind of things.
Yeah, and the detectors, they don't work well, because the problem is they can check and see if it's similar to a tone that AI would create. But the problem is that every time AI generates something, it's unique in some way, because they're mining data from different places all of the time. So I was using Brisk and showing teachers how to use it. And I said, it's really cool because it does have an AI checker in it. But I do want to tell you that I generated a prompt in it and then had its AI checker check it. And it said it was a 50% chance it was AI generated. And then it double checked it and it didn't find its own AI prompts. It's an AI response. So
that's interesting.
So it's kind of hard to even your programs that are paid programs like Turnitin, they're saying they can catch the stuff. They just really can't. Not yet. It's just not there because it changes so much every time.
Oh yeah, and it's only getting better the more and more it's being used. Stuff. You know? Yeah. Oh yeah.
That stuff's freaky.
Yeah, it is freaky.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I know it's going to become a world where we have to question everything.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Sadly.
Sadly.
Yeah, sad but true.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep focusing on the positive, but in the back of my mind, keep reminding teachers about, things about how it hallucinates and will make stuff up. It was kind of funny because I was taking a class this summer and I was having trouble finding resources on the databases. And I went to chat and I'm like, can you find me some resources on this? It made up every single one of them.
Are you
made them up?
Not a single one was a real resource, because AI is trained to please you. It wants to give you what it asks for. And when it doesn't know, it's like a little kid. It just makes it up. So, yeah. So that's why Bard, it's really cool that Google has put in Bard that ability to check for hallucinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, a game changer as far as with Bard versus ChatGPT, is that in the, the free version of both, you can kind of check for that stuff.
Thanks for listening to our For the Love of EdTech podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today and learned something you can use with your own students. You can find the show notes, resources, and more at www.fortheloveofedtech.org.
For Love of EdTech is produced by SOITA, the Southwestern Ohio Instructional Technology Association, in partnership with Think TV and CET, the local PBS stations in Dayton and Cincinnati.